The countdown timer on the phone showed 38 seconds. That's all the time Captain David Adrago had to save President Ibrahim Traoré's life and stop an assassination plot that someone had paid $10 million to execute. The encrypted message had just arrived on his secure device sent by an informant inside the assassination team itself. 38 seconds until the convoy would reach the kill zone. 38 seconds to change the route. 38 seconds to prevent a bullet that was meant to change African history. But Captain Adrago didn't panic. He didn't shout. He did something that would later be studied in security mice around the world as the perfect response to an impossible situation. And it all started with him calmly reaching for his radio and saying 3 words that would save a president's life. It was March 22, 2024, a Friday morning that seemed routine by Adrago standards. President Traoré was scheduled to visit a new agricultural project in the Northern District, a 30-minute drive from the presidential palace. The route had been planned weeks in advance. Security sweeps completed, alternative paths mapped, everything was by the book. Captain David Adrago, head of the president's personal security detail, sat in the lead vehicle, scanning the streets with the practiced eye of someone who had protected Traoré through 17 previous assassination attempts. But this one would be different. This one had been planned by professionals who knew exactly how Adrago's team operated because one of them had once been part of it. The convoy consisted of 5 vehicles, 2 motorcycles in front, the lead security SUV where Adrago sat, the president's armored Mercedes, a follow-up security vehicle, and an ambulance trailing behind. Standard formation, deliberately predictable to avoid drawing attention. They had left the palace at 9:15 a.m. Right on schedule. The streets had been partially cleared, but not entirely to maintain the appearance of normalcy. Traoré never liked full road closures. If I can't drive among my people, then I'm not their president, he would say. It was this philosophy that made him loved by the population, but gave his security team constant nightmares. At 9:27 a.m., as the convoy approached the Rue de la République intersection, Widow's encrypted phone buzzed. Not the official communication device, but his personal emergency line known only to a handful of trusted contacts. The message was brief, sent from a number he didn't recognize, but it contained a code word that made his blood run cold. Sankara. This was the designation for credible imminent threats named after Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's former leader who had been assassinated in 1987. The message read, Sanka confirmed, $10 million kill zone, water tower intersection, sniper team plus ground assault. You have 38 seconds. This message will delete in 5:43. Adrago's mind processed the information in milliseconds. The water tower intersection was exactly 38 seconds ahead at their current speed. Someone on the inside had calculated perfectly. There was no time to verify, no time to call for backup, no time for standard procedures. He had to make a decision that would either save the president or potentially drive him into an alternate ambush. But something about the message felt genuine. The code word, the precision, the self-knowing feature. This was someone who knew their protocols intimately. Without hesitation, Adrago pressed his radio. Code 7, execute now. These 3 words initiated an immediate defensive maneuver that his team had drilled hundreds of times, but never used in real life. The reaction was instantaneous. The lead motorcycle veered sharp right. The second went left. Adrago's driver yanked the wheel hard right onto a side street. The president's Mercedes followed without question, tires screeching. The follow vehicle blocked the intersection behind them and the ambulance reversed to cover the rear. In 7 seconds, the entire convoy had changed direction and was speeding down Avenue Dandep, a route they had never taken before. Inside the president's vehicle, Traoré remained calm, trusting his security chief completely. He had learned long ago that when Adrago said move, you moved first and asked questions later. 31 seconds after receiving the message as the convoy sped away from the planned route where Adrago heard it. The distinctive crack of a high-powered rifle followed immediately by automatic weapons fire. It was coming from exactly where they would have been, the water tower intersection, the kill zone. His phone buzzed again, this time with a call from the backup security team that had been stationed along the original route. Sir, massive firefight at the water tower. Multiple shooters engaged. Looks like they're firing at nothing. They think you're here, but you're not. Rayo allowed himself a brief moment of relief, but he knew this wasn't over. Whoever had planned this had resources, intelligence, and determination. They wouldn't give up easily. Delta Team, secure the palace. Echo Team, lock down all government buildings. President is going dark. Rayo commanded through the radio. Going dark meant they would disappear from all tracking systems using only analog communication, taking an unpredictable route to a safe house known only to Urego and 2 other people. As they drove, he noticed something in his rear-view mirror. A black BMW, 3 cars behind, making every turn they made. It had appeared shortly after they changed routes. Either incredible coincidence or they had a tail. Possible surveillance. Black BMW 3 vehicles back. He reported to his team. The driver of the president's Mercedes, Lieutenant Jean-Baptiste Saudu, was already aware. I see it, Captain. Should I evade? Rayo thought quickly. If they evaded, they revealed they knew about the tail. If they didn't, they could be leading themselves into another trap. Negative. Maintain course, but prepare for emergency protocol. He pulled out his second phone, the one not connected to any government system, and made a call. Inspector Cad, I need traffic units to accidentally create a jam at the Avenue Mandela intersection in exactly 2 minutes. Can you do it? Inspector Amadou Kadei over police didn't ask questions. Consider it done. 90 seconds later, as the convoy approached Avenue Mandela, 2 police cars converged on the intersection. Apparently, in response to a minor traffic accident that had miraculously just occurred, the black BMW got caught in the resulting traffic snout. Unable to follow as the president's convoy smoothly navigated through a gap, the police had deliberately left. Adrogo watched the BMW disappear in the chaos of honking horns and confused drivers. 1 threat neutralized, but how many more were out there? His phone rang. It was General Hassan Traoré from military intelligence. David, what's happening? We're getting reports of a firefight at the water tower. Assassination attempt. General. We evaded, but I need to know how they knew our route. There was a pause on the other end. David, only 7 people knew that route. If there's a mole, Compare didn't need to finish. If there was a mole among the 7 people with that level of clearance, then nowhere was safe. General, I need you to detain all 7 immediately. No exceptions, even if it's the Minister of Defense himself. Another pause. Understood. David, there's something else. Our communications intercepted chatter about a $10 million contract. The buyer is someone called the broker. Ring any bells? The broker who Drogo had heard whispers of this name in intelligence circles. A mysterious figure who arranged high-level assassinations across Africa. Never directly involved, but always pulling strings. If the broker was involved, this wasn't just an assassination attempt. This was part of something much larger. General, I'm taking the president to Safe House 7. No one else knows this location. I need you to the line went dead. Not disconnected, but dead. No static, no dial tone, nothing. Adrogo tried his other phone. Also dead. The convoy's official radios crackled with static, then went silent. They had been hit with a targeted EMP device, something that could only have come from military-grade equipment. All electronic communications in their vicinity had been neutralized. They were driving blind and deaf. Manual navigation from here. Ouedraogo announced to his driver, who nodded and took the next turn from memory. The safe house was still 12 minutes away, and they had no way to call for backup. That's when Ouedraogo noticed the helicopter, a civilian model, the kind used for traffic reporting, but it had been following them for the last 3 minutes, maintaining a suspicious distance. Inside the president's vehicle, Traoré finally spoke. David, talk to me. What's our situation? Ouedraogo turned to face his president through the reinforced glass partition. Sir, the primary attempt failed. We evaded based on intel from an unknown source, but they've killed our communications and we have aerial surveillance. I believe they're pushing us toward a secondary ambush. Traoré nodded calmly. Then we don't go where they expect. David, remember the old Chinese embassy? Ouedraogo understood immediately. The abandoned Chinese embassy closed 5 years ago was 2 blocks away. It had underground parking and tunnels connecting to 3 other buildings, perfect for disappearing. Change of plans, Bodyguard announced, hard left at the next intersection. The convoy turned sharply, tires protesting. The helicopter above banked to follow, confirming it was surveillance. But as they approached the old embassy, something unexpected happened. The gates which should have been chained shut were open. Fresh tire tracks led inside. Either someone had prepared this as a safe haven or they were driving into a trap. There was no time to decide. Weapons ready, Bodyguard commanded as they drove through the gates into the underground parking. The parking garage was empty except for 3 vehicles, all diplomatic cars with tinted windows. As the convoy stopped, doors opened on all 3 vehicles simultaneously. But instead of assassins, out stepped Colonel Michel Tapsoba from the Presidential Guard, someone Odego hadn't seen in months. "David, thank God you made it. We've been monitoring everything. This place is secure, but something was wrong." Tapsoba was supposed to be in Ghana on a training mission. Odrego's hand moved to his weapon. "Michel, what are you doing here?" Tapsoba raised his hand slowly. "David, I'm the one who sent you the warning. The 38-second message. I've been undercover for 6 months, infiltrating the assassination network, the $10 million contract. The broker, I know everything." Odego didn't lower his weapon. "Prove it. Tell me something only the real Michel would know." Tapsoba smiled sadly. "Your daughter's middle name is Amara after your grandmother. You told me at her baptism that if anything happened to you, I should make sure she knew her father died protecting something greater than himself." The weapon lowered. "It was really Michel. How did you know about the attack?" Odrego asked. Dabsa pulled out a modified phone. One that had somehow survived the EMP. "I've been inside their communication network for months. When I learned about today's attempt, I had exactly 1 chance to warn you. The 38 seconds wasn't random. It was precisely calculated based on their sniper position and your convoy speed any earlier, and they would have adapted any later and he didn't need to finish." President Traoré stepped out of his vehicle surprisingly calm given the circumstances. "Colonel Tapsoba who wants me dead badly enough to pay $10 million. Tapsoba's face darkened. "Mr. President, it's not just one person. It's a consortium. 3 mining companies, 2 foreign governments, and several individuals who stand to profit if you're removed. The broker is just the facilitator. But here's what they don't know. I have recordings of their meetings, copies of the payment transfers, everything." He handed a small drive to Traoré. "This contains 6 months of evidence, enough to expose them all." But their relief was short-lived. Outside, they could hear vehicles approaching. Many vehicles. "That's not possible," Tapsoba said, checking his phone. This location was completely secret. Odego was already moving, positioning his men. "How many entrances to these tunnels?" he asked. 3, Tapsoba replied. "But they're all sealed except wait." His face went pale. "There's a maintenance access that was supposed to be welted shut last year." They heard the distinct sound of metal being cut. Someone was coming through the maintenance tunnel. "Mr. President, we need to move now," Odrego commanded. But Traoré stood firm. "No, David, we're tired of running. If they want me, they'll have to come through all of us." He turned to address the small group of security personnel. "Gentlemen, they paid $10 million for my death. Let's make them understand that some things can't be bought." The cutting sounds stopped. There was a moment of absolute silence. Then footsteps. Many footsteps. Odrego counted at least 20 sets of boots moving through the tunnel. This wasn't an assassination anymore. This was an assault. Defensive positions. Odrego barked. His men spread out, taking cover behind vehicles and concrete pillars. Weapons were checked. Spare magazines distributed. They were outnumbered at least 3 to 1, but they had the advantage of position and the element of surprise. The attackers thought they were cornering panicked prey. They were about to discover they had walked into a trap of their own. The first figure appeared at the tunnel entrance. Weapon raised. night vision goggles giving him an alien appearance. Oirago waited. Let them commit. Let them all enter the kill box. 5 figures entered. Then 10. Then 15. They moved professionally using hand signals, maintaining spacing. These weren't local hired guns. These were mercenaries, probably former special forces, the kind money could buy from private military companies. They swept the garage methodically, moving toward the convoy's vehicles. When the last man cleared the tunnel, Rago gave the signal. The garage erupted in controlled gunfire. His men fired in disciplined bursts, using the vehicles and pillars as cover. The mercenaries, caught in the open, scrambled for cover. 3 went down in the first seconds. The others returned fire, but they were in a bad position, silhouetted against the tunnel entrance. The firefight lasted exactly 90 seconds, though it felt like hours. When the smoke cleared, 12 mercenaries were down, the rest had retreated back into the tunnel. Urago's team had taken no casualties. Though Lieutenant Sato had a graze on his arm, but Urago knew this was just the first wave. They would regroup, possibly call for reinforcements. They needed to move the other tunnels, he said to Topsoba. Where do they lead? One goes to the old French Cultural Center, another to the abandoned metro station, and the third to the Ministry of Agricultural building. The Ministry of Agriculture. That was perfect. It would be full of workers at this time providing cover, and it had multiple exits. We're taking the Ministry tunnel, Badrago decided. But as they prepared to move, Traore's secure satellite phone, one of only 3 in the country that could survive an EMP, rang. Everyone froze. Only 5 people had that number. Traore answered it. Mr. President, the voice was calm, cultured, speaking accented French. I believe you've met my employees. I'm calling to discuss terms. It was the broker. The mysterious figure behind the assassination attempt was actually calling them. Traore put the phone on speaker. I don't negotiate with assassins, he said firmly. The broker laughed. Assassin is such an ugly word. I prefer market facilitator. I bring together supply and demand. Right now, there's significant demand for your absence. Who's paying? Traore asked directly. Now, that would be unprofessional to reveal. But I can tell you this. The offer has increased 15 million now. If I can confirm within the hour. However, I'm a businessman, Mr. President. I'm calling to offer you a counter-proposal. This was unexpected. Go on. Traore said, $20 million deposited in any account you specify and you disappear. Fake your death. Free to a country of your choosing. Live comfortably for the rest of your life. Your family will be protected. Guaranteed safe passage. All you have to do is walk away. The garage was silent. $20 million to disappear. It was more money than most people could imagine. But Rose's response was immediate. You could offer me all the money in the world. And my answer would be the same. Burkina Faso is not for sale. Neither is its president. There was a pause on the other end. I expected as much principles. How quaint. Very well, Mr. President. The hard way it is. But know this. The men you just fought were the junior varsity. The real team is en route. You have perhaps 10 minutes before they arrive. Use them wisely. The line went dead. Vertigo was already moving. We leave now. Ministry tunnel. Move. But as they headed toward the tunnel entrance, Colonel Tupsoba's phone buzzed. He looked at it and his face changed. Wait, don't move. He showed the screen to word go. It was a live satellite image of their location. The entire block was surrounded. Military vehicles at every exit. At least 100 soldiers. But something was wrong with the image. The vehicles bore the markings of the Burkina Faso army. Their own military was surrounding them. That's not possible, Wu said. Unless the realization hit him like a physical blow. The mole wasn't just someone with access to the president's schedule. It was someone high enough to mobilize military units. Someone who could give orders that wouldn't be questioned. There were only 3 people in Burkina Faso with that authority. Aside from the president himself, the Minister of Defense, the Chief of Staff, or the commander of the Presidential Guard. One of them was the traitor. Traoré studied the satellite image calmly. David, how many men do we have? 12. Mr. President. 13 including myself. 13 men against 100. With no way out and no way to call for help. The odds were impossible. But then Traoré smiled, and it was the smile of a man who had just seen something others had missed. David, those aren't soldiers surrounding us. Look closer at the image. Traoré looked again. The resolution wasn't perfect. But now that he studied it, something was off about the uniforms. The way the men stood, the vehicles themselves, those are the same mercenaries from before. Traoré said, they're wearing our military uniforms, using captured or fake vehicles. It's a deception to make us think we're surrounded by our own forces to make us surrender without a fight. It was brilliant. Drago had to admit if they hadn't spotted the deception, they might have walked out thinking they were surrendering to legitimate forces. But how do we know our real military isn't compromised? So Go asked. Traoré pulled out his satellite phone again and dialed a number from memory. General Comperor. Yes, I'm alive. Listen carefully. I need you to check the position of all military units in the capital right now. What do you mean? They're all in barracks. No units deployed. That's what I thought. General, we have approximately 100 hostile forces dressed as our military surrounding the old Chinese embassy. I need the rapid reaction force here in 5 minutes. Yes, use the emergency protocol. And General, trust no one in the command structure. Come personally. He hung up and turned to his men. 5 minutes. We hold for 5 minutes and the cavalry arrives. But 5 minutes in combat could be a lifetime. The mercenaries would attack before then. They had to every second increase the chance of real military forces arriving. Drago began positioning his men. Tap Sober take 3 men and cover the main tunnel. So Wogo take 3 and watch the ministry tunnel in case they try to flank the rest with me. We make them pay for every inch. The attack came 2 minutes later. Not from the tunnels, but from above. The mercenaries had accessed the building's upper floors and were rappelling down into the garage. Smoke grenades flew through windows, filling the space with dense gray clouds. Then came the flashbangs designed to disorient and blind. But Drago had anticipated this. His men had already taken positions with overhead cover, and they fired at the repelling figures before they could touch ground. 2 mercenaries fell, their ropes going slack. The garage became a 3-dimensional battlefield. Attackers coming from above, others pushing through the tunnels, smoke everywhere, the deafening sound of gunfire echoing off concrete walls. Drago lost track of individual threats. Operating on instinct, muscle memory from 20 years of gross protection work. He dropped an attacker coming through a window, spun to cover Traoré as another emerged from the smoke, put 2 rounds center mass. The president remarkably had picked up a weapon from a fallen mercenary and was covering their 6, calm as if he was on a shooting range. 3 minutes. They had held for 3 minutes. Half of Drago's men were wounded. Those still fighting, they were running low on ammunition. The mercenaries had taken heavy casualties but kept coming. These weren't ordinary fighters giving up after meeting resistance. These were professionals who had been paid to complete a job. Then through the chaos, Drago heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Helicopters. Multiple helicopters. The rapid reaction force had arrived in record time. The change in the mercenaries was immediate. Their coordinated assault became a desperate attempt to escape, but it was too late. Burkina Faso's special forces fast roped from helicopters directly into the garage while others sealed the perimeter. The remaining mercenaries caught between Drago's men and the arriving forces surrendered. The entire battle from the first warning to the last shot had taken exactly 38 minutes. The same 38 seconds Drago had been given to save the president's life had somehow stretched into 38 minutes of survival against impossible odds. As the smoke cleared and Met extended to the wounded, General Compare himself entered the garage. Mr. President, are you injured? Traoré shook his head. Thanks to Captain Drago and these brave men, not a scratch. Compare turned to Drago. Captain, we've arrested the mole. It was the Deputy Minister of Defense, Jerome Barrow. He's already confessing, claiming they threatened his family. But Odrego was barely listening. The adrenaline was wearing off and exhaustion was setting in. "The broker?" he asked. Compere shook his head. "Still at large, but we have his communication devices." Colonel Tapsoba stepped forward. "General, I have 6 months of recordings, every meeting, every payment. The conspiracy includes at least 12 others in government, but more importantly, I have the broker's real identity." Everyone turned to him. Alexander Petro, former Russian intelligence, operates from a yacht of Morocco. He wasn't hired by enemies of Burkina Faso, but by companies wanting to buy our mining rights cheap during the chaos after the president's death. It always came back to resources. Later, as Ouedraogo sat writing his report, Traoré entered. "David, you saved my life. How do I thank someone for that?" Ouedraogo looked up. "You stay alive, sir. Keep fighting for Burkina Faso. That's all I need." Traoré nodded. The 38 seconds. "You didn't hesitate. You trusted completely." "Why?" Madra thought carefully, because whoever sent that warning was risking everything to save you. Nobody risks that much for a lie. 3 weeks later, Alexander Petro, the broker, was arrested in a joint operation between Moroccan and Burkina Bay forces. The $10 million was traced to 3 multinational corporations, leading to arrests in Paris, London, and Toronto. The failed assassination exposed the entire network of economic hitmen operating in Africa. Captain David Ouedraogo was promoted to general and given command of a new unit protecting African leaders. He established a secure communication network between 15 African nations code named 38 Seconds. Today's security minds study those 38 seconds as a lesson in trust, intuition, and split-second decisions that change history. The assassination attempt that failed became more powerful than any successful one could have been. It proved that even $10 million can't buy the death of a dream. All in 38 seconds that saved Burkina Faso.